Hello friends out in YouTube land, Asenva here, and it's been a while since I've actually made like an edited video. So this actually sparked from somebody asking me if I had any like tutorials on how to do BJD scars or anything like that. And I sat and I thought, you know what, I really don't. Normally it's like normal face ups and stuff. So today I'm gonna show you some really fun and easy ways you can make different types of cuts, bruises, gashes, blood splatter stuff. So if you're kind of on the queasy side or you don't like little gorish type stuff, I definitely suggest, that you step away from this video. But if you are interested and would like to learn how to do some of these things, then feel free to subscribe, and I hope you enjoy the video. So I'm gonna use some of the pastels that I already have, and I do already have some purples here. I have some blacks, I have some browns, some reds, some purples, all that jazz here. So I think this is going to be a good base for me to start off with, and I'm going to probably build around a color, because usually when you get like bruised, it's like it kind of fades out, and I'm just going to kind of just pat it down. And I'm going to do another purple on top of that. Okay, and we're just going to kind of press it in, okay? And I'm just dabbing it. That's all I'm doing, okay? So there it is. Again, you can just add on multiple layers. You could spray this and add more. Make it deeper if you want, and add more colors, but I would definitely do it in layers if we're working on bruises. But this is, I guess, kind of some real simplistic stuff you could do. So some other things we're going to try is we're going to try putting it on with paint. So that was with pastel. I think it looks a little bit more realistic with pastel, but maybe you want to try it with paint, okay? So I already have some paint here, and I'm going to basically use this sponge, and I'm going to see how it sponges out. And it kind of gave it like a really hazy effect. I kind of like this more, but this looks like high impact. Alright, for my next experiment, I'm actually going to be using an old brush. And so this brush used to be like a paintbrush I used, and I think I left something on it and it dried. So we're going to repurpose the brush to help us use it to make scrapes and stuff. So I basically tried to separate the bristles as much as I could. I dabbed some paint on it, and I'm going to like do a couple of practice strokes on a piece of paper before I actually do it on my doll. And then that way I can know how much paint is on here. So you can see it kind of does this kind of effect, and I don't want too much paint. The more paint you have on there, it's going to be like a thicker, bigger line, and we don't want that. So we're going to go ahead and make sure we take off as much paint before we get ready to apply it onto our doll to make an effect. So we're going to do it right here, I guess, and then I'm going to just whoop. So this is a scrape, and that's what we're going for. So we did like a little scrape on the head here. And even if you don't have like a little old brush to do this with, you can probably do it with just like a thin enough brush. It just will probably take you more strokes to do it. So I'm gonna go ahead and build on this. So again, thinking back to like how we did our bruises and stuff like that, I'm gonna add more color to the outside of it, and we're gonna see how it turns out. There's our fresh little scrape. Alright, next up we're going to try doing some cuts with like, I guess, gashes. So versus a scrape, we kind of need to layer a little bit more, right? So we're going to try using a combination of glue, some paint, and some pastels to kind of build this up. So again, I think you really could probably start off any way you want, whether you want to try to use like a wet glue kind of paint base with it, or if you want to do just a clear base and then add on to it. There's so many things that you can definitely do and try. Go ahead and add on to this little injury here that we're making. It's probably some blood splatter, so we're gonna go ahead and add some red. Okay, I'm gonna add some water to this, because what we basically need to do is we're gonna have to like flick it onto the doll head. So I'm gonna go ahead and just go like this and dip my bristles in, and I'm just using a toothbrush. Okay, tap off as much as I can. Really, you'll have to practice your control. Like if you're gonna do like a little bit, like maybe only do like the tip of the brush. That way you can really concentrate like on how much you're throwing down here, because obviously you put a lot. If you do like a large flick like I did right now, it goes everywhere, but it gives that kind of little splatter effect. The good thing about it having some water to it too is that eventually it kind of dries out, and it will give it a really cool effect too once it's dried out. Alright, next up on the table, we're going to try some burns or scars, and the first method I'm going to try is actually a layering method. So what we would need is Elmer's glue, and you just need just basic white back to school Elmer's glue, and I poured entirely way too much in here. But a couple of different things I would like to try, and I'm gonna use like the end of an old brush, is I'm gonna try putting the color inside of the glue already. So A, I can see where I'm placing this, and B, I can see kind of like how it's gonna dry out on there. So I'm gonna do just like a line down the back, and again I'm using the end of a brush of an old brush. You can actually probably put it on an actual brush, but this is, with a scar, like you need to have like a, I don't want to say like a fat base, but like it needs to have some sort of base, and then you build on it. Again, you don't have to use something like that. I mean, you could use whatever you want. You could use a brush, an actual brush if you want, to lay down that paint mixture, but I think I gotta find a brush that I don't care about so much. So you would let this dry. So we would need to let this dry, and then we're gonna see. Now, some cautionary things about using Elmer's glue and doing layers and letting it dry over time is that it does take time to put in the layers. So first and foremost, the thicker the layer, the longer it's gonna take for it to dry. So unless you want to wait for a very, 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 very long time, try not to make the layers too thick when you're laying them down. Now, some other things you also need to consider too is that it will eventually start to lay flat. So if you think, oh man, this looks so great and I like how raised in texture it looks, it might not be as raised when it's completely finished drying. So you have to give it some time to see how it's gonna look afterwards, and then continue to build on that. So you might ask, well, why add in the glue? I think it makes it thicker than like just using flat acrylic paint. Because really, honestly, you could build it without putting paint in it. So like, let's say you don't even want to do it this way. Like if you just want to go ahead and put it in with just the glue, which sometimes gets a little bit tricky to see over time, but I'll show you. So I'm gonna grab some glue, and I'm just gonna just put this down on there, okay? Okay, so there's my clear one. So I've got 3 going there. My light is so bright. Okay, we got pink, white, and red. Okay, we're gonna let this dry. You could paint on top of that. So you could either add, and I just think that's why maybe it might be better to do it with some color, to have at least some sort of base color with it, so when it dries, at least you're going to start off with a color, and then you could do your pastels around it. Or if you want to go ahead and start it off like this, I think it'll be fine that way too, because the glue should dry clear. Most of the times it dries pretty clear, and if not, these two might turn out a little bit cloudy, but if your intent is to paint on top of it or maybe to put pastel over it, you should be fine. So same thing for burns and stuff. I would use a flat tool. I kind of like this, the shape of this, but God, burns are so different depending on like how they're formed and stuff. So I would probably kind of just use something that can be blotted around the area, and then you're gonna kind of bring it out. I don't want to say like a starburst, but you're gonna have points that will come out. So like this right here, I don't know if you can see it, is how I would kind of do a burn. So it has like a main center that's going to be probably a little bit thicker, but it's spread out, and you've got like little parts that are kind of put out there too that you can drag out. So we're going to let this dry and see what happens, and we'll come back and see you in a bit. Alright, another experiment for the books. I'm going to try to dampen some toilet paper with this glue and see if it can adhere onto the doll and create a more solid, like raised surface, just because I think sometimes doing this glue method, it, like I said, it flattens out. I'm seeing it dry right now, and some of it is already like kind of flattened out, and you know, maybe you want more oomph to your scar or to something else that's happening effects wise. So I'm gonna try just kind of, I'm putting this in the little glue dish that I have here, and I'm really saturating it, so it's making it into like a booger. Okay, we'll call it the scar booger, and I'm gonna put the scar booger over here. Okay, so I'm gonna just kind of lay it down with my finger, and I'm gonna press down the edges of it, and I'm gonna make sure that I am laying it down. Okay, so that's my little scar booger one that I'm putting down. I'm also gonna try to get some of this glue off the sides because I don't want the glue to show up as much on the doll there. Okay, all right, we're gonna let that little booger dry. We'll see how that one works too. Okay. Alright, so coming back to my scars, you can still see it has been pretty much like an hour or something like that, and this is still drying. So the outer part of it has dried, and the inner like little section here is still drying. You can tell it's still like really wet. You can see it in the light. These two, I've already added 2 layers to them. I don't know if maybe like the paint helps speed up the process, but that is how that is going. So from this point you can add more pastel to it, add more color, and do what you want with that. The burn has definitely flattened out. There's only one little wet piece left, which is here. So we're gonna add pastel and see how this looks and see if we like it or not, or do I need to add more. And then the little glue booger is almost dry, but I like how thick it has made itself. So I didn't have to add any layers on this at all after I had placed it on there. So it's just literally whatever you slap down on there is what's gonna appear. So it doesn't go flat or anything. So I kind of like the idea of using a little bit of toilet paper with the glue to kind of give it some more texture and to kind of raise the surface. So you could probably do a lot of stuff with that. And let it adhere that way. But this guy, I can't touch this guy yet because he's still wet. But we're going to go ahead and show you what it looks like when we apply a little bit of pastel to this section here that has some of that texture to it. So now that I have kind of like swept over my cotton ball over the surface of it and just kind of lightly doing it, you can see that now we have like this kind of different look to it. It's kind of got, I feel like this is kind of like a burned effect. I guess that really depends on how you lay down the glue and how much you lay down. So this was just with one layer laid down, and like I said, it kind of creates like this different look to it that's not exactly just flat. So there's different effects that you can do. This part hadn't dried yet all the way, so I waited until it had like that little bubble layer over it, and then I put paint on top of it, so it's kind of created this kind of look. But you can kind of see like where the outline of the glue is. So this would be something that you could either paint, or you can kind of do kind of like how it looks like a burned effect now. But if you choose to paint on top of it, now this becomes that raised surface. So it really depends on like what you're looking to do, like what you're trying to accomplish. So if I take, I have like a little watery paint mixture, I could lay it on top of this little piece that I made, because I can see where it is. When it's dry, you can kind of see that texture too. And you can just like simply paint on it like this, and then now, you know, you'll have like a raised surface with, you know, a painted like scar if that's what you're looking for, or you can just brush over it and it makes something very light. So this one goes out very wide, so if you want it to be thinner, you would definitely have to make it a thinner initial line. But there's so much stuff that you can do, and it really, all you need is just to play with, you know, your glue, your pastels, and your paint, and you can do a lot of different things with your doll. Hopefully this kind of gave you an idea of some different things that you can do. Again, I decided to use these materials because I felt like they were the safest. So I know 100% all this stuff I have used on my dolls before. I've used glue, I've used pastels, paint before, so I know this will all definitely come off. So yep, as always, I hope you guys have a dolly-tastic day, and I hope to see you guys in another video soon. Bye!